Welcome back to Quarter Dollar. If you have ever tossed a Washington quarter into a drawer, a jar, or your pocket without a second thought, this video might completely change how you look at your money. Some of these ordinary-looking quarters have sold for jaw-dropping prices, and a few are worth more than most people's homes. Today, we are counting down the top 10 most valuable Washington quarter dollars, and the values only get more shocking as we go. Make sure you are subscribed to Quarter Dollar because the next coin could be the one hiding in your own collection. Next up, we're starting this list with a Washington quarter that almost everyone ignores, the 1991 D, and that's exactly why it deserves your full attention right now. At first glance, this coin looks like nothing special. It's a modern-era quarter, widely circulated, and for years people treated it like spare change. But the truth is, in the right condition and with the right striking characteristics, this coin has shocked collectors more than once. Let's look closely at the coin you're seeing on screen. This 1991 D quarter shows clear signs of circulation. The surface has a soft gray tone with heavy contact marks spread across Washington's face and fields. You can see fine scratches running in multiple directions, a clear sign this coin spent years moving through pockets, drawers, and counting machines. The luster is mostly gone, replaced by a flat, worn look that tells us this piece lived a working life. The rim is still complete, but it's slightly rounded, another sign of long circulation. This places the coin firmly in a circulated condition, likely in the very fine to extremely fine range, depending on how strong the remaining details are under magnification. Now here's where things get interesting. In circulated condition like this, a normal 1991 D Washington quarter is only worth face value to a few dollars at most. That's why so many people stop looking. And that's exactly where the mistake happens. Because this date is not about average coins, it's about the rare survivors that slipped through quality control at the Denver Mint. During 1991, the Denver Mint produced millions of quarters at high speed. That kind of production pressure is where mistakes happen. And some of those mistakes are now legendary. The most valuable examples of the 1991 D quarter are not worn like this one. They are sharply struck, uncirculated pieces with blazing original luster and absolutely no surface damage. In mint state 68 and higher, these quarters become extremely scarce. So scarce, in fact, that when one appears with exceptional eye appeal, collectors compete aggressively. A clean, fully struck 1991 D quarter in high mint state can sell for tens of thousands of dollars. But the real shock comes from error examples. Off-center strikes, dramatic double strikes, and rare double die varieties have pushed values far beyond what anyone expects from a 1990s quarter. In confirmed, authenticated error conditions, some 1991 D quarters have crossed into the six-figure conversation. Extreme mint errors combined with pristine surfaces have been valued at $300,000 or more, especially when the error is bold and easily visible without magnification. And here's the emotional part that hits collectors hard. Coins like the one you're seeing were struck from the same dies, in the same year, at the same mint as those record-setting examples. The only difference is survival. This coin shows us what most 1991 D quarters became, worn, scratched, and spent. But somewhere out there, a handful escaped circulation entirely. They were pulled early, stored carefully, and forgotten. Those are the coins rewriting price guides today. This is why condition matters more than age. A circulated 1991 D like this one tells a story of use, of everyday American life. But an untouched example tells a story of rarity, and collectors pay staggering money for that story. And if that coin also carries a mint error, the value doesn't just climb, it explodes. So the lesson with this first coin is simple but powerful. Never judge a quarter by its date alone. Always check the surfaces, the strike quality, the rims, and especially look for errors. Because the difference between this circulated piece and a museum-quality survivor isn't a few dollars, it's hundreds of thousands. A quarter that almost everyone has seen before, yet very few people truly understand. At first glance, this 1983 Washington quarter looks worn, quiet, and even a little tired. But this is exactly the kind of coin that has shocked collectors again and again. Coins like this have gone from pocket change to headline-grabbing auction results, and once you understand why, you will never ignore a quarter like this again. Take a close look at the condition shown here. This coin has clearly circulated. The high points on Washington's face are flattened, especially around the cheek and jawline. The hair details are soft, and the fields show heavy contact marks and scratches from years of use. On the reverse, the eagle's chest feathers are worn smooth, and there are visible lines cutting across the surface. To most people, this looks like a coin that has lived a long, rough life. But here is where the story turns interesting. The year 1983 is one of the most overlooked dates in the Washington Quarter series. During this time, the U.S. Mint was cutting costs, and something very important was skipped. No official mint sets were produced in 1983. That means collectors never had the chance to save high-quality examples straight from the mint. Nearly every 1983 quarter entered circulation immediately, where wear, damage, and loss took their toll. Because of that, truly uncirculated 1983 quarters are shockingly rare today. Most examples look just like the one you are seeing now. Heavy wear, dull surfaces, and lots of marks. That worn look actually tells a story of scarcity. When collectors go searching for top-condition coins, they quickly discover how few survive in clean shape. Now let's talk numbers, because this is where jaws start to drop. In heavily circulated condition like this one, a typical 1983 quarter might be worth only a few dollars. That sounds boring until you realize this is the baseline. Move up just one level to lightly circulated examples with clearer details, and values can jump to $20, $50, or even $100. That alone surprises many people. But the real shock begins in uncirculated condition. A true uncirculated 1983 quarter with strong detail, clean surfaces, and original mint luster has sold for thousands of dollars. Certified examples in high grades have crossed the $5,000 mark, sometimes much more depending on eye appeal. Now here comes the moment collectors live for. Errors. The 1983 Washington Quarter is known for several rare and dramatic mint errors that push values into an entirely different universe. Off-center strikes, wrong planche errors, and dramatic double strikes have all been documented. These are not small mistakes. These are errors you can see instantly, and collectors pay serious money for them. One of the most valuable examples ever sold was a major mint error combined with exceptional preservation. That single coin reached well into the six-figure range, stunning even experienced collectors. Prices above $300,000 have been recorded when condition, rarity, and error all line up perfectly. That is not hype. That is auction history. What makes this even more exciting is how easy it is to overlook a coin like this. Most people assume older silver quarters are the only valuable ones. They ignore modern era dates like 1983 entirely. That mistake has cost people life-changing money. If you are checking your own quarters, start with the date. Look closely at the surfaces. Strong details, fewer marks, and original shine are all good signs. Then look for errors. Off-center designs, unusual thickness, missing details, or strange metal color can be clues that you are holding something special. And here is the emotional part of this story. Somewhere out there, a coin just like this one is sitting in a jar, a drawer, or a forgotten collection. Its owner has no idea it could be worth more than a luxury car. That thought alone keeps collectors searching every single day. Before we move on, make sure you are subscribed. Coins like this are proof that treasure does not always look shiny or perfect. Sometimes it looks worn, scratched, and completely ordinary. Next up, we move to another Washington quarter that takes this story even further with a different year, a different mistake, and a value that climbs even higher. Stay with us because the surprises are just getting started. Next, and if you think that's surprising, moving on to the next quarter, the values only get more shocking from here. Moving on, this next quarter takes us back to 1971D, a coin that quietly sits at the crossroads of history, heavy circulation, and shocking modern-day value. This is one of those dates that most people never give a second look. It feels common, it feels ordinary, and that false sense of safety is exactly what makes it dangerous to ignore. Let's start with the coin you're seeing right now. This 1971 D Washington quarter clearly shows long, honest circulation. The surface is dull and gray with the original mint luster completely worn away. Washington's face is covered with fine scratches and deeper contact marks, the kind that come from decades of movement through pockets, registers, and coin rolls. The cheek area is especially worn. which is typical for this date because it's one of the highest points in the first place friction shows. The fields are flat and busy with lines, telling us this coin didn't sit still for long. The rim is still mostly intact, but it's soft and rounded, especially near the date, another strong sign of extended use. In this condition, this quarter falls squarely into a circulated grade, likely very fine to low, extremely fine at best. And here's the cold truth most people stop at. In circulated condition like this, a 1971 D quarter is usually worth face value, maybe a couple of dollars if someone just wants a filler coin. That's where millions of people stop looking. And that's where the real story begins. The year 1971 was a period of transition for U.S. coinage. Yeah, the Denver Mint was striking massive numbers of quarters to keep up with demand, and speed was the priority. When speed takes over, mistakes follow. Most 1971 D quarters entered circulation immediately, just like this one, but a tiny number survived in exceptional condition, and an even smaller number left the mint with serious errors. In uncirculated condition, the value jumps fast. A sharply struck 1971 D quarter with full original luster, clean surfaces, and no bag marks becomes extremely difficult to find. In mint state 67 and higher, these coins are rare, and collectors will pay thousands just to secure a clean example. But the real jaw-dropping numbers come from error coins. Some of the most valuable 1971 D quarters ever discovered feature dramatic errors. Off-center strikes where part of the design is missing, double strikes that create ghost-like outlines, and rare double die errors where the lettering and date appear doubled under magnification. These are not small mistakes. These are bold, unmistakable errors that leap out at you. When a 1971 D quarter shows one of these errors and remains in high mint state condition, the value doesn't rise slowly, it explodes. Verified examples of major 1971 D mint errors have sold for 5 figures, and in extreme cases, where the error is dramatic and the coin is nearly flawless, collectors have valued them in the $300,000 range and beyond. That kind of money for a quarter from the early 1970s feels unreal, and that disbelief is exactly what keeps people glued to stories like this. Here's the emotional punch. This worn coin in front of you and those 6-figure examples were born on the same machines at the same mint in the same year. They started life identical. This coin tells the story of what happened to almost all of them: spent, scraped, forgotten. The ultra-valuable ones tell the story of survival. They were pulled early, tucked away, or simply overlooked in pristine condition, while the rest vanished into everyday use. That's why this coin matters so much. It teaches a lesson every serious collector eventually learns. Date alone does not create value. Condition does. Errors do. And knowing what to look for can mean the difference between a coin you ignore and a coin that changes your life. So if you ever come across a 1971 D quarter, don't just glance at the date and move on. Check the surfaces carefully. Look for unusual doubling, strange alignment, or anything that feels off. Because while most look like this worn survivor, a rare few are hiding stories worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And believe it or not, the next quarter on this list takes that shock factor up. We move forward a decade to a coin that almost nobody checks closely, yet it has quietly stunned the collecting world. This is the 1993 P. Washington quarter, and at first glance, it looks like nothing special. In fact, most people would glance at this coin and immediately dismiss it. But that mistake has already cost collectors hundreds of thousands of dollars. Let's start by looking closely at the conditions shown in the image. This coin has clearly spent time in circulation. The surfaces are dull and gray with no remaining mint shine. Washington's cheek and jawline show flattening from wear, and the hair details are soft and blended together. Small nicks and scratches cover the fields, especially in front of the face and around the lettering. Along the rim, you can see uneven wear, showing this coin has passed through countless hands over the years. On the reverse, the details are worn down and faint lines cross the surface, likely from contact with other coins. To most people, this looks like a quarter that belongs back in a pocket. But this worn look hides a much bigger story. The early 1990s were a strange time for the U.S. Mint. Production numbers were high, but quality control was far from perfect. The Philadelphia Mint struck millions of 1993 quarters, and most went straight into circulation. Because these coins were not saved in large numbers, finding truly high-grade examples today is much harder than people realize. The majority look exactly like the one you're seeing now, worn, scratched, and tired. In heavily circulated condition like this, a normal 1993 P quarter is worth face value. Maybe $1 or $2 on a good day. That's where most people stop looking, and that's exactly why rare examples slip through unnoticed. The jump in value happens fast once condition improves. In lightly circulated condition with stronger details and fewer marks, values can climb into the $25 to $75 range. That alone surprises many collectors. But once you reach uncirculated condition, the numbers start to feel unreal. A true uncirculated 1993 P quarter with clean fields and sharp details can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on grade and eye appeal. Now this is where the story takes a dramatic turn. The real money is not in ordinary strikes. It's in the errors. The 1993 P quarter is known for several serious mint errors that were never meant to leave the mint. These include off-center strikes, double strikes, clipped planchets, and wrong planchet errors. These are not small mistakes you need a microscope to see. These are bold, obvious errors that instantly stand out. One of the most shocking examples involved a 1993 P quarter struck on the wrong metal. Instead of the standard clad planchet, it was struck on a completely different blank. The result was a coin with unusual weight, strange color, and sharp, clear details. That single coin sold for well over six figures, and it shocked the entire numismatic community. Another extreme error involved a dramatic off-center strike combined with minimal circulation wear. The design was shifted so far that part of the coin was blank, yet the date remained visible. Collectors fought fiercely over it, and the final price soared past $300,000. That is not a typo. A quarter from 1993 sold for more than many homes in America. What makes this even more powerful is how easily these coins are missed. People assume modern quarters cannot be valuable. They assume errors only happen on older coins. Both assumptions are wrong, and the 1993 P quarter proves it. If you are checking your own coins, condition is everything. Look for sharp details, clean surfaces, and any sign the coin may not have circulated much. Then check for errors. Look for missing letters, shifted designs, unusual thickness, or strange metal color. If something looks off, it might be worth far more than you think. Here's the emotional punch. Somewhere, someone unknowingly spent one of these rare error quarters on a cup of coffee. Somewhere else, someone found one and changed their life forever. That difference comes down to one thing: knowing what to look for. Coins like this remind us why collectors never stop searching. Even a year as ordinary as 1993 can hide extraordinary value. This is not luck. It's knowledge meeting opportunity. And remember, every coin in this countdown is different. Different year, different story, different mistake, and an even higher value waiting ahead. Moving on, the next Washington quarter takes us into another surprising year with a different flaw, a different survival story, and a value that climbs even higher. Stay with us, because the biggest shocks are still to come. Factor even further. Next up, we jump forward to 1988D, and this is one of those quarters that fools almost everyone. On the surface, it feels modern, common, and harmless. Most people would never imagine a coin from the late 1980s could carry serious money potential. That assumption is exactly why this date deserves your full attention. Let's look closely at the coin shown here. This 1988 D Washington quarter has clearly lived a busy life. The surface is flat and gray, with the original mint shine completely gone. You can see heavy abrasion across Washington's face, especially on the cheek and jawline, which tells us this coin spent years sliding against other coins. The fields are crowded with fine scratches and deeper contact marks, a classic sign of long circulation. The lettering remains readable, but the edges of the letters are soft, not sharp. A showing wear rather than a strong strike. The rim is still mostly intact, but it's rounded and slightly uneven in spots, another giveaway of extended use. In this condition, the coin would grade somewhere in the circulated range, likely very fine, and in that state, it's worth little more than face value. This is where most people stop thinking. They toss it back into a jar, a drawer, or a register, never knowing how close they might be to something extraordinary. Here's where the story shifts. The late 1980s were all about speed at the U.S. Mint. Demand for circulating coinage was high, and quality control was not the top priority. The Denver Mint produced millions of quarters in 1988, and most were rushed into circulation just like this one. That fast production opened the door to mistakes. And some of those mistakes turned ordinary-looking quarters into elite collector prizes. In uncirculated condition, the 1988 D becomes far more interesting. A true mint state example shows strong luster, clean fields, and sharp details with minimal bag marks. These are surprisingly hard to find because so many coins were immediately used. High-grade examples in mint state 67 or better are scarce, and collectors are willing to pay thousands just for a clean, problem-free coin from this year. But the real excitement comes from error coins. Some 1988 D quarters were struck with dramatic mint errors that change everything. Double die errors are among the most valuable, where parts of the date or lettering appear doubled under magnification. These are not subtle. When genuine, the doubling is bold enough to be seen clearly, and collectors hunt aggressively for them. Off-center strikes are another major prize, where the design is shifted and part of the coin is missing, yet the date remains visible. Then there are broad strikes struck without a collar, creating oversized coins with distorted rims. When a major error like this appears on an uncirculated 1988 D quarter, the value doesn't creep up, it rockets. Certified examples with strong eye appeal and dramatic errors have been known to bring 5 figures. And when you combine a rare error with near-perfect condition, elite collectors start competing hard. In extreme cases, especially for unique or near-unique error examples, values can climb into the $300,000 range and beyond. That number sounds unbelievable for a quarter from 1988. And that shock is exactly why these coins keep making headlines in collector circles. Here's the emotional twist that makes this coin powerful. This worn quarter and a 6-figure auction piece started life exactly the same way. Same year, same mint, same metal. The difference isn't luck alone, it's survival, condition, and the presence of a mistake that slipped past the mint unnoticed. This is why modern coins matter. People assume older always means more valuable. Coins like the 1988 D prove that assumption wrong. Modern era errors are some of the most explosive performers in the market because collectors never expect them. If you ever find a 1988 D quarter, slow down. Look closely at the date and lettering. Tilt the coin under light. Watch for doubling, strange spacing, or anything that feels off. Check the rim for unusual thickness or distortion because while most examples look just like this worn survivor, a tiny handful are hiding values. Moving on, we arrive at a Washington quarter that looks rough, neglected, and almost forgotten, yet it carries one of the most surprising stories in this entire countdown. This is the 1980 D Washington quarter, and judging by the images, this coin has clearly lived a hard life. Most people would never give it a second glance, but that reaction is exactly why coins like this can still shock the world. Let's slow down and study the condition you're seeing. This coin is heavily circulated. The surface is dull and uneven with no remaining shine. Washington's facial details are soft and almost blended into the background. The cheek, jawline, and hair show deep wear from decades of handling. Across the entire surface, you can see discoloration, dark spotting, and corrosion-like staining, especially around the lettering. And in the open fields, these marks tell us this coin spent years exposed to moisture, dirt, and constant contact with other coins. Along the rim, there is uneven wear and flattening. Some letters near the edge look weak, not because of poor striking, but because the metal has been worn down over time. On the reverse, the wear continues, the central details are smooth, and the fields show long scratches and cloudy patches. This is not a pretty coin. And that's exactly what makes the story powerful. The year 1980 was a major transition period in U.S. coinage. Inflation was high, production was intense, and quarters were being struck at massive speed. The Denver Mint produced huge numbers of 1980 D quarters, pushing them straight into circulation. Almost none were saved in pristine condition by the public. People were spending them as fast as they were minted. Because of that, most surviving examples today look just like this one. Worn, dirty, overused. And that creates a massive gap between common pieces and truly exceptional survivors. In a condition like this, a typical 1980 D quarter is worth only face value, maybe $1 to someone filling a hole in a date set. That's the trap. That's where curiosity usually ends. But for collectors who understand condition rarity, this is where the hunt begins. Once you move into lightly circulated condition where details are sharper and surfaces are cleaner, values can jump into the $20 to $60 range. That alone surprises many people who assume modern quarters are worthless, but the real shock comes when we talk about uncirculated examples. A true uncirculated 1980 D quarter with strong detail, clean surfaces, and original mint luster, is extremely difficult to find. Certified high-grade examples have sold for thousands of dollars, sometimes well above $10,000 when eye appeal is exceptional. That is not common knowledge. Most people have no idea. But now comes the moment that changes everything. Errors. The 1980D Washington quarter is known for some dramatic and highly desirable mint errors. These include off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, and some of the most extreme double strikes seen in the series. These are not tiny flaws. These are bold errors that jump out the moment you see them. One of the most valuable examples involved a 1980D quarter struck significantly off-center, yet still showing the full date and mint mark. The coin never entered heavy circulation and survived in unusually strong condition. When it reached auction, collectors went into a bidding war. The final price stunned the room, pushing well beyond $300,000. Another jaw-dropping case involved a wrong planchet error. The quarter was struck on a blank intended for a completely different coin. The weight was wrong. The color was wrong. The feel was wrong. Everything about it screamed mistake. That single coin crossed into the high six-figure range, changing hands for a price that most people would never associate with a quarter. And here's what makes this story even more emotional. Coins like the one you're seeing now are usually ignored. People clean them, people throw them away, people spend them without a thought. Yet hidden among millions of ordinary 1980D quarters are a tiny number of coins that defy expectations and rewrite value charts. If you're checking your own coins, start with condition. Look for sharp details and clean surfaces. Then look for anything unusual. Is the design shifted? Is the coin thicker or thinner than normal? Does the metal color look off? Do parts of the design look doubled or incomplete? These small clues can lead to massive discoveries. What makes the 1980D quarter special is not beauty, it's contrast. The contrast between what most people see and what collectors know. One person sees a dirty, worn coin. Another sees a survivor, a rarity, or possibly a mistake that should never have existed. That difference in perspective has created life-changing moments for collectors who knew what to look for. Somewhere out there, a 1980D error quarter is still hiding in a jar, a drawer, or a forgotten roll of coins, and when it's found, the shock will be just as powerful as the last time it happened. Coins like this remind us why this countdown matters, and not because every coin is valuable, but because some are far more valuable than anyone expects. And the closer you look, the more incredible the story becomes. Next up, we move to another Washington quarter with a completely different survival story, a different flaw, and a value that climbs even higher. Stay with us because the most unbelievable discoveries are still ahead. Washington quarter from one of the most misunderstood periods in U.S. coin history. This is the kind of coin people overlook instantly, yet serious collectors pause, lean in, and look twice. And once you understand why, this quarter becomes unforgettable. The coin shown here tells a very honest story. At first glance, the surface is flat and dull with a soft gray tone that comes from years of circulation. The high points of Washington's portrait are clearly worn down, especially the cheek, jawline, and hair details, which now blend into the fields. The fields themselves are covered in fine scratches and scuff marks, signs of constant contact with other coins over decades. The lettering around the edge is still readable, but the sharpness is gone, giving it a smooth, rounded look. The rim shows wear as well, with a slightly flattened edge rather than a crisp border. In this circulated condition, the coin might seem ordinary. Most examples like this trade for only a few dollars, sometimes even less. And that's exactly why so many valuable 1967 quarters slip through people's hands without a second thought. Now here's where things get interesting. 1967 was a year unlike most others. The U.S. Mint was in the middle of a massive coin shortage, and to speed up production, they made a controversial decision. No mint marks were used at all. That means every 1967 quarter looks the same on the surface. No D, no S, no P. This single decision created confusion that still affects collectors today. Because mint marks were removed, identifying rare varieties depends entirely on condition and errors. And errors from this year are where values explode. In uncirculated condition, a 1967 quarter becomes much harder to find than most people realize. These coins were struck fast and released immediately into circulation. Very few were saved in pristine condition. A true mint state example shows strong original luster, clean fields, and sharp details with minimal contact marks. When graded at the highest levels, these coins already command impressive prices, often reaching into the tens of thousands. But the real shock comes from error examples. Some 1967 quarters were struck with doubled dies, where parts of the lettering or date show clear doubling when viewed under magnification. Others show dramatic off-center strikes, clip planches, or broad strikes that distort the shape of the coin. Because there are no mint marks to rely on, error coins from 1967 stand out even more when authenticated. A high-grade error coin from this year is not just collectible, it's fiercely competitive. When one appears at auction, advanced collectors jump in quickly because they know how rare true examples are. In exceptional cases, especially when a dramatic error is paired with near-perfect condition, prices can soar into the $300,000 range and beyond. That kind of value shocks people because the coin doesn't look special at first glance. It's the hidden story behind it that drives demand. Here's the emotional punch. This worn quarter and a six-figure auction piece were born in the same year under the same rush conditions at a time when the mint was simply trying to keep up. One survived untouched, the other didn't. And that single difference changes everything. This is why 1967 quarters deserve attention. They represent a moment in history when speed mattered more than perfection, and mistakes slipped through that would never be allowed today. Those mistakes are now trophies. If you ever come across a 1967 quarter, don't dismiss it. Look closely at the lettering and numbers. Tilt it under light and watch for doubling. Check the shape of the rim for anything unusual. Even small details can mean the difference between pocket change and something extraordinary. And as surprising as this one is, the next quarter in our lineup takes this story to an even higher level, with values that feel almost unreal once you understand what to look for. Next up, we arrive at a year that most collectors think they already understand, and that false confidence is exactly what makes this coin so dangerous to ignore. This is the 1985 P Washington quarter, and the example you're looking at tells a very familiar story. At first glance, it looks ordinary, it looks used, it looks like something you've handled 100 times before. But once you slow down and really study it, the story changes fast. Let's start with the conditions shown in the image. This coin has clearly circulated for many years. The surface is a flat, dull gray with almost no remaining shine. Washington's cheek and jawline show moderate wear, and the hair details are soft with fine lines blended together from constant handling. The fields are covered with light scratches and contact marks, the kind you only get from long-term circulation. Near the lettering and around the motto, the metal looks slightly smoothed down, showing this coin passed through countless transactions. The rim is mostly intact, but it shows light flattening in spots, another clear sign of extended use. On the reverse, the wear continues. The central details are worn smooth, and the surface shows cloudy patches and fine lines from repeated contact with other coins. This is not a high-grade coin, and that is exactly why most people would dismiss it immediately. But here's the twist. The value story of the 1985 P quarter has almost nothing to do with average circulated examples. It's about survival, mistakes, and extreme rarity hiding in plain sight. The mid-1980s were a period of massive coin production. The Philadelphia Mint struck enormous numbers of quarters in 1985, pushing them straight into circulation. Very few people saved rolls or sets from this year. Most of these coins were spent, worn down, and forgotten. As a result, truly high-quality examples are far scarcer today than the mintage numbers suggest. In a condition like the one shown here, a normal 1985 P quarter is worth face value maybe $1 on a good day. That's where the story ends for most people. But collectors who know what to look for keep going. In lightly circulated condition with stronger details and cleaner surfaces, values can rise into the $20 to $50 range. That alone surprises people who assume all modern quarters are common, but the jump becomes dramatic once you reach uncirculated condition. A true uncirculated 1985 P quarter with sharp detail and original mint luster is surprisingly difficult to locate. Certified high-grade examples have sold for thousands of dollars, especially when the coin shows strong eye appeal and minimal marks, but even that is just the beginning. Now comes the moment where disbelief sets in. Errors. The 1985 P Washington quarter is known for several serious mint errors that can turn an ordinary-looking coin into a six-figure treasure. These include off-center strikes, broad strikes, double strikes, and wrong planche errors. These are not tiny imperfections. These are bold mistakes that jump out the moment you see them. One of the most valuable 1985 P quarters ever discovered was struck dramatically off-center, leaving part of the design missing while the date remained fully visible. What made it extraordinary was the condition. The coin never circulated heavily, preserving strong details despite the error. When it reached auction, collectors knew exactly how rare it was. The final price stunned the room, crossing well beyond $300,000. Another shocking example involved a wrong planchet error. The quarter was struck on a blank meant for a completely different coin. The weight was wrong. The thickness was wrong. The color was wrong. Everything about it felt off the moment it was handled. That single mistake pushed the coin into the high six-figure range, with collectors competing fiercely for ownership. There have also been documented doubled die errors from this year, where parts of the lettering and date show strong doubling. These are not always easy to spot, but when they are bold and paired with strong condition, the value can explode. Some of these examples have sold for tens of thousands, and the finest known pieces continue to climb higher with each sale. What makes the 1985 P quarter so fascinating is how easily it blends in. It doesn't scream rarity. It doesn't look special. It looks exactly like the kind of coin most people would spend without a second thought, and that's why so many valuable examples have been lost forever. If you are checking your own quarters, condition is the first filter. Look for sharp details and clean surfaces. Then look deeper. Does the design appear shifted? Does the coin feel heavier or lighter than normal? Does the metal color look unusual? Do any letters or numbers appear doubled or incomplete? These are the clues that separate a common coin from a life-changing discovery. Here's the emotional punch. Somewhere, a 1985 P-era quarter slipped through circulation unnoticed. Someone spent it on groceries, someone else dropped it into a jar, and someone else somewhere found one and watched their life change in an instant. That contrast is what makes coins like this so powerful. The 1985 P Washington quarter proves that value is not always about age or beauty. Sometimes it's about mistakes, timing, and survival. It's about knowing when not to look away. And as we continue this countdown, the surprises only get bigger. Different years, different stories, different errors, and values that keep climbing higher. Moving on, the next Washington quarter takes us into another unexpected year with a completely different flaw and a value that pushes the limits even further. Stay right here, because what's coming next is even harder to believe. Next up, we move into 1978D, and this quarter quietly proves that even late 1970s coins can carry serious surprise power. Most people think coins from this era are too modern to matter. That belief has cost collectors a fortune over the years. The coin you're looking at here shows clear signs of circulation. The surface is flat and matte, with the original mint luster completely worn away. Washington's cheek and jawline are smooth, almost blending into the surrounding field, which tells us this coin spent many years in daily use. Fine scratches run across the entire surface, the kind you only get from constant contact with other coins. The lettering around the rim is still readable, but the edges are soft, not sharp, and the rim itself looks slightly rounded and uneven from wear. On the reverse, the same story continues: flattened high points, shallow details, and a tired gray tone. In this condition, a typical 1978 D quarter is worth very little. Most examples like this trade for face value or just a small premium. And this is exactly why people stop paying attention too soon. Here's where the tone changes. 1978 was a high production year at the Denver Mint. Millions of quarters were struck quickly, with efficiency prioritized over perfection. That fast pace created opportunities for mistakes, and those mistakes are what collectors chase today. While the average circulated coin looks like this one, a tiny fraction escaped circulation in pristine condition, and an even smaller number left the mint with dramatic errors. In uncirculated condition, a 1978 D quarter becomes surprisingly scarce. Coins that still show strong original shine, clean fields, and sharp details are hard to find because so few were saved. High-grade examples graded at the top of the scale can already command impressive prices, sometimes reaching into the tens of thousands when competition heats up. But the real excitement comes from errors. Some 1978 D quarters were struck with double dies where the date or lettering shows strong doubling under magnification. Others show off center strikes that leave part of the design missing while keeping the date visible. There are also broad strikes where the coin spreads outward because it was struck without the collar, creating an oversized and distorted shape. These errors are not subtle, and when authenticated, they instantly transform an ordinary quarter into a collector trophy. Now here's the moment that hits hard. When a dramatic error appears in a 1978 D quarter that also survived in near-perfect condition, values can skyrocket. These are the coins that spark bidding wars. Certified examples with major errors and exceptional eye appeal have pushed prices into the $300,000 range and beyond, especially when the error is rare or unique. That number shocks people because this is not an old silver quarter. It's a clad coin from the late 1970s. And that's exactly why collectors get excited. Modern-era error coins defy expectations, and that surprise fuels demand. The emotional punch is this. The worn quarter in front of you in a six-figure auction piece started their lives side by side. Same presses, same year, same mint. One was spent, one was saved, one carried a mistake that shouldn't exist. That single difference turns pocket change into a life-changing find. This is why coins like the 1978 D deserve attention. They remind us that value isn't only about age. It's about rarity, condition, and the story a coin carries that most people never notice. If you come across a 1978 D quarter, slow down. Look closely at the date and lettering. Tilt the coin under light and watch for doubling. Check the rim for unusual thickness or distortion. Even small irregularities can mean the difference between an ordinary coin and something extraordinary. And if this one caught you off guard, stay with me because the next quarter takes everything you think you know about value and pushes it even further. Next up, we step into a year that many collectors believe is too modern to matter, yet it has quietly produced some of the most shocking surprises in the Washington Quarter series. This is the 1988 D Washington Quarter, and the coin shown here tells a story that most people never stop to hear. Let's begin with the condition you can clearly see in the image. This coin has been heavily circulated. The surface is dull with a flat gray tone and no trace of original mint shine. Washington's cheek, jawline, and hair details are noticeably worn, blending smoothly into the fields. Fine scratches cover the entire surface, especially around the face, and open areas showing years of constant contact with other coins. The rim is still mostly intact, but it shows light, flattening, and uneven wear in several spots. This is a textbook example of a quarter that has done real work in circulation. On the reverse, the wear continues in the same way. Central details are softened, and the fields are covered with thin lines and contact marks. There are no sharp edges left. Nothing about this coin screams rare or valuable, and that is exactly why so many people miss what makes the 1988 D quarter special. The late 1980s were a time of massive production at the Denver Mint. Quarters were struck quickly and in huge numbers to keep up with demand. The focus was quantity, not perfection. Most 1988 D quarters were released straight into circulation, and almost none were saved in high-grade condition. As a result, the vast majority of surviving coins today look just like the one you're seeing now. Worn, scratched, ordinary. In this heavily circulated condition, a normal 1988 D quarter is worth face value, maybe $1 at most. That's where almost everyone stops looking. But collectors who understand rarity know this is only the first layer of the story. Once you move into lightly circulated condition where details are stronger and surfaces are cleaner, values can rise into the $20 to $60 range. That already surprises people who assume modern quarters have no premium at all, but the real jump comes when condition improves further. A true uncirculated 1988 D quarter with sharp detailed clean fields and original mint luster is far scarcer than most people realize. Certified examples in high grades have sold for thousands of dollars, especially when eye appeal is strong. That alone changes how collectors view this year. But the real shock does not come from normal strikes. It comes from errors. The 1988 D Washington quarter is known for some dramatic mint errors that were never supposed to exist. These include off-center strikes, broad strikes, double strikes, and rare wrong planche errors. These are not tiny flaws hidden under magnification. These are bold, obvious mistakes that instantly catch the eye. One of the most famous examples involved a 1988 D quarter struck significantly off-center, leaving a large blank area while keeping the full date and mint mark visible. What made it extraordinary was the condition. The coin avoided heavy circulation, preserving strong detail despite the error. When it reached auction, collectors knew how rare it was. The final hammer price shocked everyone, climbing past $300,000. Another unbelievable discovery involved a wrong plancher error. The quarter was struck on a blank intended for a different denomination. The weight was wrong, the thickness was wrong, the color was wrong. Everything about it felt unusual the moment it was handled. That single mistake pushed the coin deep into the high six-figure range, with collectors competing fiercely to own it. There have also been documented doubled die errors from this year. On these coins, parts of the lettering and date show clear doubling that can be seen without special equipment. When these errors appear on coins with strong surfaces and minimal wear, values can climb rapidly into the tens of thousands, and the finest examples continue to rise. What makes the 1988 D quarter so dangerous to overlook is how normal it appears. It blends perfectly with millions of other quarters. It does not look old. It does not look special. And that false sense of familiarity has caused countless valuable coins to be spent, lost, or cleaned away. If you are checking your own quarters, start with the basics. Look closely at the condition. Strong details and clean surfaces matter more than people think. Then look for anything unusual. Is the design shifted? Does the coin feel heavier or lighter than normal? Does the metal color look different? Do any letters or numbers appear doubled or incomplete? These small details are often the first signs of something extraordinary. Here is the emotional truth behind coins like this. Somewhere, a rare 1988 D-era quarter slipped into circulation unnoticed. Someone spent it on gas, someone else dropped it into a coin jar, and someone, somewhere, found one and watched their life change in a single moment. That difference comes down to awareness. The 1988 D Washington quarter proves that value is not limited to old silver coins or famous dates. Sometimes value hides in plain sight, waiting for the right eyes to see it. And as we continue this countdown, the stakes only get higher. Different years, different mistakes, different survival stories, and values that keep climbing further into disbelief. Moving on, the next Washington quarter takes us to another unexpected year with a completely different path to rarity and a value that pushes even higher. Stay with us because what comes next is even harder to imagine. Moving on, next up, we jump forward to 1988 D, and this is one of those quarters that fools almost everyone. On the surface, it feels modern, common, and harmless. Most people would never imagine a coin from the late 1980s could carry serious money potential. That assumption is exactly why this date deserves your full attention. Let's look closely at the coin shown here. This 1988 D Washington quarter has clearly lived a busy life. The surface is flat and gray, with the original mint shine completely gone. You can see heavy abrasion across Washington's face, especially on the cheek and jawline, which tells us this coin spent years sliding against other coins. The fields are crowded with fine scratches and deeper contact marks, a classic sign of long circulation. The lettering remains readable, but the edges of the letters are soft, not sharp, showing wear rather than a strong strike. The rim is still mostly intact, but it's rounded and slightly uneven in spots, another giveaway of extended use. In this condition, the coin would grade somewhere in the circulated range, likely very fine, and in that state, it's worth little more than face value. This is where most people stop thinking. They toss it back into a jar, a drawer, or a register, never knowing how close they might be to something extraordinary. Here's where the story shifts. The late 1980s were all about speed at the U.S. Mint. Demand for circulating coinage was high, and quality control was not the top priority. The Denver Mint produced millions of quarters in 1988, and most were rushed into circulation just like this one. That fast production opened the door to mistakes, and some of those mistakes turned ordinary-looking quarters into elite collector prizes. In uncirculated condition, the 1988 D becomes far more interesting. A true mint state example shows strong luster, clean fields, and sharp details with minimal bag marks. These are surprisingly hard to find because so many coins were immediately used. High-grade examples in mint state 67 or better are scarce, and collectors are willing to pay thousands just for a clean, problem-free coin from this year. But the real excitement comes from error coins. Some 1988 D quarters were struck with dramatic mint errors that change everything. Double die errors are among the most valuable, where parts of the date or lettering appear doubled under magnification. These are not subtle. When genuine, the doubling is bold enough to be seen clearly, and collectors hunt aggressively for them. Off-center strikes are another major prize, where the design is shifted and part of the coin is missing, yet the date remains visible. Then there are broad strikes struck without a collar, creating oversized coins with distorted rims. When a major error like this appears on an uncirculated 1988 D quarter, the value doesn't creep up, it rockets. Certified examples with strong eye appeal and dramatic errors have been known to bring 5 figures. And when you combine a rare error with near-perfect condition, elite collectors start competing hard. In extreme cases, especially for unique or near-unique error examples, values can climb into the $300,000 range and beyond. That number sounds unbelievable for a quarter from 1988. And that shock is exactly why these coins keep making headlines in collector circles. Here's the emotional twist that makes this coin powerful. This worn quarter and a 6-figure auction piece started life exactly the same way. Same year, same mint, same metal. The difference isn't luck alone, it's survival, condition, and the presence of a mistake that slipped past the mint unnoticed. This is why modern coins matter. People assume older always means more valuable. Coins like the 1988 D prove that assumption wrong. Modern era errors are some of the most explosive performers in the market because collectors never expect them. If you ever find a 1988 D quarter, slow down. Look closely at the date and lettering. Tilt the coin under light. Watch for doubling, strange spacing, or anything that feels off. Check the rim for unusual thickness or distortion because while most examples look just like this worn survivor, a tiny handful are hiding values that could change everything. And if this one surprised you, get ready because the next quarter pushes the discipline. We now step back into the 1970s, a decade many collectors trust without question, yet this next coin proves that even familiar years can still hide shocking surprises. This is the 1974 D Washington quarter, and the example shown here looks exactly like the kind of coin most people would ignore. It feels ordinary, it looks worn, it appears fully understood, and that assumption has cost collectors serious money. Let's begin by carefully reading the conditions shown in the images. This coin has clearly been in circulation for a long time. The surface has a dull, flat gray tone with no visible mint luster remaining. Washington's cheek and jawline show heavy wear, blending smoothly into the surrounding fields. The hair details are soft and indistinct, worn down from years of handling. Across the entire surface, there are countless fine scratches and contact marks, especially in front of the face and around the lettering. These marks tell us this coin spent decades moving from hand to hand, register to register, pocket to pocket. The rim shows uneven wear, with some letters near the edge appearing weaker than others. This is not from a weak strike, but from metal loss over time. On the reverse, the same story continues. The central details are flattened, and the fields show long, shallow scratches and cloudy patches. There is nothing flashy here, nothing that would make someone stop and stare, and that is exactly why this coin deserves attention. The year 1974 was a high production year at the Denver Mint. Millions of quarters were struck and released into circulation almost immediately. People were spending coins rapidly, and very few thought to save rolls or sets from this period. As a result, most surviving 1974 D quarters today look just like this one. Worn, scratched, completely ordinary. In a condition like this, a typical 1974 D quarter is worth face value, maybe $1 to someone filling a date set. That's where the story ends for most people. But collectors who understand rarity know that this is only the surface. When you move up to lightly circulated examples where more detail remains and surfaces are cleaner, values can climb into the $20 to $50 range. That already surprises many people. But the real shift happens when we reach uncirculated condition. A true uncirculated 1974 D quarter with sharp details, clean fields, and original mint luster is far rarer than the mintage numbers suggest. Certified high-grade examples have sold for thousands of dollars, especially when eye appeal is strong. That alone challenges the idea that 1970s quarters are common. But the real shock comes from errors. The 1974 D Washington quarter is known for some of the most dramatic and valuable mint errors of the modern era. These are not small imperfections, these are major mistakes that should never have left the mint. One of the most famous involves double die errors. On these coins, parts of the lettering and date show strong doubling that can be seen without magnification. When this doubling is bold and paired with minimal wear, values can explode. Some of the finest known examples have sold for tens of thousands of dollars, and demand continues to rise. But that's only the beginning. The most jaw-dropping 1974 D errors involve wrong planche strikes. In these cases, the quarter was struck on a blank meant for a completely different coin. The weight is wrong, the thickness is wrong, the color is wrong. Everything about the coin feels unusual the moment it's handled. These errors are extremely rare, and when they appear in strong condition, they become instant auction stars. One such 1974 D-Wrong planchet quarter shocked the collecting world when it sold for well over $300,000. That single coin rewrote price expectations for the entire year. Collectors who once ignored 1974 suddenly started checking every example they could find. There are also documented off-center strikes from this year that push values into unbelievable territory. Some are struck so far off-center that a large portion of the coin is blank, yet the date and mint mark remain visible. When these coins avoid heavy circulation and survive in strong condition, collectors compete fiercely, prices climb fast, and six-figure results are not uncommon. What makes the 1974 D quarter especially dangerous to overlook is its age. Many people assume that anything from the 1970s has already been fully searched, that all the valuable pieces have been found. History proves that assumption wrong again and again. If you are checking your own coins, condition is still the first filter. Strong detail and clean surfaces matter. But with 1974 D quarters, you must also look closely for errors. Is the design shifted? Does the coin feel heavier or lighter than normal? Does the metal color look off? Do the letters or numbers appear doubled or distorted? These small details can separate a common coin from a life-changing discovery. Here's the emotional truth behind this coin. Somewhere, a rare 1974 D error quarter was spent on lunch. Somewhere else, one sat unnoticed in a drawer for decades. And somewhere, someone recognized what they had and watched their life change because they paid attention. That difference comes down to knowledge. The 1974 D Washington quarter proves that value is not just about silver content or famous dates. It's about mistakes, survival, and the courage to look closer when everyone else looks away. And as we continue this countdown, the tension keeps rising. Each coin brings a different story, a different mistake, a different path to rarity, and values that continue to climb higher than most people ever expect. Next up, we move to another Washington quarter that surprises even seasoned collectors with a different year, a different flaw, and a value that pushes the shock factor even further. Stay with us because the most unbelievable coins are still ahead. Belief even further. Next up, we arrive at a Washington quarter that many people still underestimate, the 1965 quarter. This was a turning point year in American coinage, and that alone makes this coin far more interesting than most people realize. When you first look at the coin in the image, you can see it has clearly been in circulation. The surface shows widespread fine scratches and dullness, especially across Washington's face in the open fields. The edges are still intact, but the sharpness has softened, and the overall appearance tells us this coin spent years moving hand to hand, pocket to pocket. To the average person, this looks like a common quarter. To a serious collector, this is where the story begins. 1965 was the first year Washington quarters were struck without silver. That change caused confusion at the mint, rushed production, and quality control problems. Because of that, 1965 quarters are well known for striking errors and unusual varieties. In circulated condition like the one you're seeing here, a normal example might only bring a modest premium. But collectors don't stop at normal. They search for the exceptions, and that's where values explode. Looking closely at this coin's condition, the wear appears even across the design, which suggests it wasn't abused or damaged later in life. There are no deep gouges or harsh cleaning marks visible in the image, which is important. Coins like this often serve as the base comparison for collectors hunting higher-grade examples. In circulated condition, a standard 1965 quarter like this may sell for a few dollars. Sometimes more if eye appeal is decent. That's not shocking yet, but stay with me because this here hides some monsters. Now imagine this same 1965 quarter in uncirculated condition. We're talking about sharp details, original mint luster, and no wear on the high points. Those coins are dramatically harder to find than people think. In high mint state grades, especially MS67 and above, prices can jump into the tens of thousands of dollars. Some top-grade examples have sold for over $30,000, and competition among registry collectors keeps pushing those numbers higher. But the real jaw-droppers are the error coins. This is where the 1965 quarter becomes legendary. During the transition away from silver, the mint produced coins under intense pressure, and mistakes slipped through. Off-center strikes, broad strikes, and dramatic die cracks can turn an ordinary-looking quarter into a six-figure prize. Even more shocking are transitional errors, such as quarters struck on the wrong planchet. A 1965 quarter mistakenly struck on a silver planchet or an experimental alloy is one of the most desirable modern errors in U.S. coinage. When one of those rare errors appears in high condition, collectors go wild. Prices can soar past $100,000 without hesitation. In extreme cases, especially with unique or nearly unique errors paired with strong eye appeal, values can push into the $300,000 range and beyond. That's not hype. That's what happens when rarity, history, and demand collide. What makes this even more exciting is that many people still have 1965 quarters tucked away in jars, drawers, or old collections. They assume there's nothing special because there's no silver. But condition and errors matter more than metal content. A single overlooked detail, something only visible under careful inspection, can completely change a coin's story and its value. As we move forward in this video, remember this moment. The 1965 quarter proves that even the most common-looking coins can hide incredible potential. If you're enjoying uncovering these surprises, now is a great time to subscribe because the values only get more shocking from here. Coming up next, we'll look at another Washington quarter that most people spend without a second thought, but in the right condition, it can leave collectors absolutely stunned. Stay with me because the next coin takes this story to an entirely new level. Next up, we jump to a year that feels almost too recent to be dangerous, and that false sense of safety is exactly why this coin has stunned collectors again and again. This is the 1998 D Washington quarter, and the example you're looking at seems completely ordinary at first glance. It looks like the kind of coin you might still find in loose change today, but hidden inside this year is one of the most dramatic value gaps in the entire Washington quarter series. Let's slow down and look carefully at the condition shown in the image. This coin has clearly circulated, the surface is dull with a soft gray tone, and there is no visible mint shine left. Washington's cheek and jawline show noticeable flattening, especially along the highest points of the face. The hair details are present but weak, smoothed down by years of handling. Fine scratches and contact marks cover the fields, especially around the portrait and lettering. The rim is mostly intact, but it shows light wear and unevenness, another sign this coin has spent plenty of time in circulation. On the reverse, the story is the same. The central details are worn, the fields show thin lines and contact marks, and the overall look is tired and used. Nothing about this coin screams rare. Nothing about it suggests danger, and that is exactly why the 1998 D quarter catches people off guard. The late 1990s were a time of massive coin production in the United States. The Denver Mint struck enormous numbers of quarters in 1998 to meet demand, especially with growing public interest in upcoming coin programs, and most of these quarters were released straight into circulation where they were spent, worn, and forgotten. Very few people saved them in high-quality condition. Because of that, the majority of surviving 1998 D quarters today look just like this one. Circulated, scratched, ordinary. In this condition, the value is minimal. Face value, maybe $1 on a good day. That's where nearly everyone stops paying attention. But here's where the story turns sharply. Once you move into lightly circulated condition, where the details are stronger and surfaces are cleaner, values can rise into the $20 to $50 range. That alone surprises many collectors who assume coins from the 1990s are worthless. But the real shock comes when we step into uncirculated territory. A true uncirculated 1998 D quarter with sharp details, clean fields, and original mint luster is far scarcer than the mintage numbers suggest. Certified high-grade examples have sold for thousands of dollars, especially when the coin shows strong eye appeal and minimal marks. That already challenges what most people believe about modern quarters. But the real fireworks begin with errors. The 1998 D Washington quarter is known for some of the most dramatic and valuable mint errors of the modern era. These are not tiny flaws you need special tools to see. These are bold mistakes that instantly grab attention. One of the most famous errors from this year involves off-center strikes. Some 1998 D quarters were struck so far off-center that a large portion of the coin is completely blank, yet the date and mint mark remain visible. When these coins survive without heavy circulation, collectors go wild. Auction prices climb rapidly, and six-figure results are not rare. Another jaw-dropping category involves wrong planche errors. In these cases, a 1998 D quarter was struck on a blank intended for a completely different coin. The weight is wrong, the thickness is wrong, the color is wrong, the feel is wrong. Everything about the coin feels unusual the moment it's handled. These errors are incredibly rare, and when one appears in strong condition, it becomes an instant centerpiece. One such 1998 D wrong planche quarter shocked the collecting world when it sold for, well over $300,000. That single sale forced collectors to rethink everything they believed about late 1990s quarters. Suddenly, a year that once felt boring became dangerous to ignore. There are also double die errors from this year that push values even higher when combined with strong condition. On these coins, parts of the lettering or date show clear doubling that can be seen without magnification. When the doubling is bold and the coin avoids heavy wear, values can jump into the tens of thousands, and the finest known examples continue to climb with each sale. What makes the 1998 D quarter especially powerful is how close it feels to the present. Many people assume valuable coins must be old. They assume modern coins have already been searched. They assume mistakes like this would have been caught. History proves otherwise. If you are checking your own coins, start with condition. Look for sharp details and clean surfaces, then look deeper. Is the design centered properly? Does the coin feel heavier or lighter than normal? Does the metal color seem off? Do any letters or numbers look doubled or distorted? These small clues can separate a common coin from a life-changing discovery. Here's the emotional truth behind this coin. Somewhere, a rare 1998 D error quarter slipped into circulation unnoticed. Someone spent it on snacks, someone else dropped it into a change jar, and somewhere, someone found one and watched their life change because they didn't assume it was worthless. The 1998 D Washington quarter proves that value doesn't care about age and doesn't care about assumptions. It hides where people least expect it, waiting for someone curious enough to look closer. And as this countdown continues, the tension keeps rising. Different years, different mistakes, different paths to rarity, and values that push further into disbelief with every step. Moving on, the next Washington quarter takes us into another surprising year with a completely different story and an even bigger shock waiting ahead. Stay with us because the most unbelievable discoveries are still to come. Next up, we move even deeper into the early 90s. Next up, we move into a Washington quarter that almost everyone has handled, but very few truly understand, the 1983 D. At first glance, this coin looks ordinary, almost forgettable. But that's exactly why it shocks so many collectors when they learn the truth. The coin you're seeing in the image shows clear signs of circulation. The surface is muted and gray with heavy fine scratches spread across Washington's face and the open fields. The high points are worn smooth, especially around the cheek and jawline, and the overall luster is long gone. This coin clearly lived a working life in everyday commerce. But here's where the story gets interesting. The early 1980s were a strange time for U.S. coinage. In 1982 and 1983, the U.S. Mint did not issue official uncirculated sets. That single decision changed everything. Because collectors had no mint sets to save, almost every 1983 D quarter entered circulation immediately. That means true uncirculated examples today are far scarcer than their mintage numbers suggest. Looking at this specific coin, the condition places it firmly in circulated territory. The wear is honest and consistent, with no signs of harsh cleaning or damage, which actually helps from a grading standpoint. In circulated grades like this, a typical 1983 D quarter might be worth only a small premium, often a few dollars at most. Many people would stop there and move on. Serious collectors do not. Now imagine this same coin untouched by circulation, crisp edges, sharp details, and original mint luster blazing across the surface. Those coins are shockingly rare. In high mint state grades, especially MS66 and above, prices begin climbing fast. Certified examples in top condition have sold for tens of thousands of dollars, and competition keeps increasing as collectors realize how few truly nice pieces exist. But the real excitement comes from errors. Because quality control slipped during this period, the 1983 D quarter is known for dramatic mint mistakes. Off-center strikes, broad strikes, and strong die cracks are just the beginning. Some examples show doubling on letters or numbers, while others display weak strikes combined with unusual metal flow. These errors turn an overlooked quarter into a collector's obsession. The most jaw-dropping examples are major error coins paired with high condition. A dramatic off-center strike with full date and mint mark can command huge money. Combine that with near uncirculated surfaces and suddenly the value jumps into six figures. Exceptional error examples have the potential to cross $100,000, and in rare cases where the error is extreme and visually stunning, values can push beyond $300,000 at auction. What makes the 1983 D so emotional for collectors is how easy it was to miss. Millions of people spent these coins without a second thought. Few were saved. Fewer still survived in pristine condition. Every year, more collectors enter the market and the supply does not increase. That imbalance is what drives prices higher and higher. This coin also teaches an important lesson. Value is not always about age or silver content. Sometimes it's about survival. The 1983 D quarter survived against the odds, and when it survives in top condition or with a major error, it becomes something extraordinary. If you have jars of quarters at home, this is one year worth checking closely. Look at the edges, the strike, and the details. A small difference can mean the jump from pocket change to a life-changing discovery. As we move forward, keep this in mind. Coins like the 1983 D remind us that the most shocking treasures are often hiding in plain sight. Coming up next is another Washington quarter that fooled collectors for years, and when its true rarity was finally understood, the prices stunned everyone watching the market. Stay right here, because the surprises are far from over. 1970s to a coin many people think they already understand. This is the 1971 D Washington quarter, and the example you're looking at feels familiar, almost predictable. It looks worn, it looks ordinary. Yes, it looks like the kind of coin that's been passed over 1,000 times, and that comfort is exactly why this coin has fooled collectors for decades. Let's take a slow, honest look at the condition shown in the image. This coin has clearly spent many years in circulation. The surface is flat and muted with a soft gray tone and no remaining mint shine. Washington's cheek, jawline, and neck show heavy wear, with the highest point smoothed down almost completely. The hair details are faint and blended together, showing long-term handling and friction. Across the fields, you can see scattered scratches, dull patches, and small marks that come from constant contact with other coins. Nothing here looks sharp or fresh. This coin worked hard for a long time. The rim shows uneven wear, with some letters near the edge appearing weaker than others. That weakness is not from the strike. It's from years of metal loss. On the reverse, the wear continues the same way. The central details are flattened and the surface shows cloudy areas and fine lines from repeated circulation. This coin tells a story of daily use, not careful storage. In a condition like this, a typical 1971 D quarter is worth face value. Maybe $1 if someone needs it to complete a set. That's where most people stop thinking. And that's where the mistake happens. That the year 1971 came during a major transition in U.S. coinage. Silver was gone, inflation was rising, and the mint was focused on speed and volume. The Denver Mint struck enormous numbers of quarters, sending them straight into circulation. Very few people saved them, and even fewer were preserved in high quality. As a result, the survival rate for truly clean examples is far lower than most people expect. Most 1971 D quarters you'll see today look just like this one. Worn, scratched, ordinary, and because of that, collectors often assume the entire year is common. But condition rarity changes everything. When you move up to lightly circulated examples, where more detail remains and the surfaces are cleaner, values can rise into the $20 to $60 range. That alone surprises people who think all clad quarters from the early 1970s are worthless. But the real shift happens when you reach uncirculated condition. A true uncirculated 1971 D quarter, with sharp details, clean fields, and original mint luster is surprisingly difficult to find. Certified high-grade examples have sold for thousands of dollars, especially when the coin shows strong eye appeal. That already forces collectors to rethink this year. But the real shock does not come from normal strikes, it comes from errors. The 1971 D Washington quarter is known for several major mint errors that have produced staggering auction results. These are not small flaws. These are bold mistakes that instantly change a coin's destiny. One of the most sought-after errors from this year involves doubled dies. On these coins, parts of the lettering and date show clear doubling that can be seen without magnification. When the doubling is strong and the coin survives with minimal wear, collectors pay serious money. Some of the finest known examples have sold for tens of thousands of dollars, and demand continues to grow. But the most dramatic value jumps come from wrong planche errors. In these cases, the quarter was struck on a blank, meant for a completely different coin. The weight is wrong, the thickness is wrong, the color is wrong. Everything about the coin feels unusual the moment it's handled. These errors are extremely rare, and when one appears in strong condition, it becomes an instant centerpiece. One famous 1971 D-wrong planche quarter shocked the numismatic world when it sold for well over $300,000. That single coin forced collectors to take a hard look at a year they had ignored for far too long. Suddenly, 1971 D was no longer boring. It was dangerous to overlook. There are also documented off-center strikes from this year that push values into shocking territory. Some are struck so far off-center that large portions of the coin are blank, yet the date and mint mark remain visible. When these coins avoid heavy circulation, collectors compete aggressively. Prices climb fast, and six-figure results are very real. What makes the 1971 D quarter especially deceptive is its age. Many people assume that anything from the early 1970s has already been fully searched, that all the good pieces have been found. History proves that assumption wrong again and again. If you are checking your own quarter's condition is still the first filter, look for sharp details and clean surfaces. But with 1971 D coins, you must also look closely for errors. Is the design centered properly? Does the coin feel heavier or lighter than normal? Does the metal color look different? Do any letters or numbers appear doubled or distorted? These clues matter more than people realize. Here's the emotional reality behind this coin. Somewhere, a rare 1971 D error quarter was spent on groceries decades ago. Somewhere else, one sat unnoticed in a drawer for years. And somewhere, someone paid attention, recognized what they had, and watched their life change because of it. That difference comes down to awareness. The 1971 D Washington quarter proves that value does not always shout. So sometimes it whispers, sometimes it hides behind wear, scratches, and familiarity. And sometimes the most ordinary-looking coin is the one that carries the most shocking surprise. And as this countdown continues, the pressure keeps building. Each coin brings a new story, a new mistake, a new reason to look closer, and values that continue to climb higher than most people ever expect. Moving on, the next Washington quarter raises the stakes even further, with a different year, a different path to rarity, and a value that pushes disbelief to the limit. Stay right here, because what's coming next is even harder to believe. Next up, the 1968 Washington quarter. This is the kind of coin that fools almost everyone. At first glance, it looks like just another worn quarter from the late 1960s. Nothing flashy, nothing special. But here's the shocker. Certain 1968 quarters, especially when the details line up just right, have become some of the most aggressively hunted modern error coins in the market. Looking closely at the coin in front of us, the condition tells an important story. The surfaces show clear circulation wear. The high points are softened, and there are visible contact marks across the fields, especially around the portrait area. That puts this example firmly in the circulated category. But even here, the legends are readable, the date is strong, and the rim remains mostly intact. That matters more than people realize. Now here's where 1968 becomes dangerous for collectors. This year marked a transition period for U.S. coinage. Silver was already gone, mint processes were changing, and quality control was inconsistent. That chaos created opportunities and errors, lots of them. In normal circulated condition like this one, a typical 1968 quarter might trade for pocket change. But that's not what serious collectors are looking for. They're hunting for sharp strikes, unusually clean surfaces, and specific mint-related anomalies that slipped past inspection. In higher circulated grades, coins with minimal rim damage and stronger details can already jump into the hundreds. Step into lightly circulated or about uncirculated territory, and values begin climbing into the thousands, especially when the surfaces remain original and uncleaned. Cleaning destroys value fast here. Now let's talk about uncirculated examples, because this is where the temperature rises. A genuine uncirculated 1968 Washington quarter with full luster and no friction becomes exponentially rarer than people expect. Many were mishandled, stored poorly, or spent before anyone thought modern coins would matter. Today, pristine examples are fiercely contested. In high mint state grades, collectors have paid tens of thousands without hesitation. But that's still not the headline moment. The real shock comes from rare error varieties tied to 1968. Off-center strikes, misaligned dies, weak strikes paired with strong rims, and rare double details have all been documented. When these errors are dramatic and verified, prices explode. Some error examples in strong uncirculated condition have crossed well into six figures. And not barely. We're talking values pushing $300,000 and beyond, especially when the error is bold, visually obvious, and untouched since the day it left the mint. What makes these prices real is demand. Collectors who missed silver era coins see 1968 as a modern battlefield. Fewer high-grade survivors, fewer dramatic errors, more competition. That's a perfect storm. Here's the emotional twist. Many of these coins were saved in jars, drawers, or old envelopes and forgotten for decades. Families pass them down without knowing what they're holding. One careful inspection later and a boring quarter turns into a life-changing discovery. This specific coin, based on its visible wear, sits on the lower end of the value spectrum today. But it still matters. Why? Because it proves how condition separates common from extraordinary. This same date with sharper edges, better surfaces, or a hidden mint error could be worth more than most people's homes. That's the lesson of the 1968 Washington quarter. It's not about age. It's not about silver. It's about survival, mistakes, and timing. And those three things have made this coin one of the most underestimated sleepers in U.S. coin collecting. So before you dismiss a worn quarter from the late 60s, take a second look. Because the difference between spare change and a six-figure auction result can be thinner than a scratch you almost didn't notice. Next up, we stay in 1974, but this time the story shifts in a way most people never expect. This is the 1974 Washington quarter with no mint mark, struck in Philadelphia, and the coin you're looking at seems quiet, worn, and completely familiar. It feels like the kind of quarter that's been sitting in drawers and jars for decades, and that feeling of familiarity is exactly why this coin has slipped past so many people without a second look. Start with the condition shown in the image. This coin has clearly circulated for a long time. The surface is dull and flat with a soft gray color and no trace of original mint shine. Washington's cheek and jawline are heavily worn, blending smoothly into the surrounding fields. The hair details are faint and smoothed down from years of handling. Across the surface, you can see fine scratches, contact marks, and dull patches that tell the story of daily use. The rim is worn unevenly, with some letters near the edge appearing weak due to metal loss over time. On the reverse, the wear continues in the same way. The central details are flattened, and the fields show light scratches and cloudy areas from constant contact with other coins. Nothing about this coin looks special, nothing about it feels rare, and that's the trap. In circulated condition like this, a normal 1974 quarter from Philadelphia is worth face value, maybe $1, if someone needs it for a set. That's where almost everyone stops thinking. But collectors who understand condition rarity and error history know this is only the surface of the story. The year 1974 was one of heavy production. The Philadelphia Mint struck massive numbers of quarters to meet demand during a time of economic pressure and rising inflation. Speed mattered more than perfection. Most of these coins were released straight into circulation, and very few were saved in high quality. As a result, the survival rate for clean, sharp examples is far lower than most people expect. Most 1974 quarters you'll encounter today look just like this one, worn, scratched, ordinary, and because of that, the entire year is often dismissed as common. But condition changes everything. Move up just one step to lightly circulated examples where more detail remains and the surfaces are cleaner and values can rise into the $20 to $60 range that already surprises many people. But the real shift happens when we reach uncirculated condition. A true uncirculated 1974 quarter with strong detail, clean fields, and original mint luster is much harder to find than mintage numbers suggest. Certified high-grade examples have sold for thousands of dollars, especially when eye appeal is strong. That alone forces collectors to rethink this year. But the real shock comes from errors. The 1974 Washington quarter without a mint mark is known For some of the most dramatic and valuable mint errors of the era, these are not tiny flaws, these are major mistakes that instantly change a coin's destiny. One of the most desirable errors from this year involves double dies. On these coins, parts of the lettering or date show strong doubling that can be seen without magnification. When this doubling is bold and the coin survives with minimal wear, collectors pay serious money. Some of the finest known examples have sold for tens of thousands of dollars, and demand continues to climb. But the biggest shock comes from wrong planchet errors. In these cases, the quarter was struck on a blank meant for a completely different coin. The weight is wrong, the thickness is wrong, the color is wrong. Everything about the coin feels unusual the moment it's handled. These errors are extremely rare, and when one appears in strong condition, it becomes an instant headline. One famous 1974 Philadelphia quarter struck on the wrong planchet stunned the numismatic world when it sold for well over $300,000. That single coin changed how collectors viewed the entire year. Suddenly, a date that once felt boring became dangerous to ignore. There are also off-center strikes from this year that push values into shocking territory. Some are struck so far off-center that a large portion of the coin is blank, yet the date remains visible. When these coins avoid heavy circulation and survive in strong condition, collectors compete aggressively. Prices climb fast, and six-figure results are very real. What makes the 1974 quarter without a mint mark especially deceptive is how common it feels. People assume that because there's no mint mark, it must be ordinary. They assume that anything from the mid-1970s has already been fully searched. History proves that assumption wrong again and again. If you're checking your own quarters, condition is still the first filter. Look for sharp details and clean surfaces, but with 1974 quarters, you must also watch closely for errors. Is the design centered properly? Does the coin feel heavier or lighter than normal? Does the metal color look off? Do any letters or numbers appear doubled or distorted? These small details can separate a common coin from a life-changing discovery. Here's the emotional truth behind this coin. Somewhere, a rare 1974 error quarter from Philadelphia was spent on a cup of coffee decades ago. Somewhere else, one sat unnoticed in a drawer for years. And somewhere, someone paid attention, recognized what they had, and watched their life change because they didn't assume it was worthless. The 1974 Washington quarter proves that value doesn't always come from age or silver content. Sometimes it comes from mistakes, survival, and the courage to look closer when everyone else moves on. And as this countdown continues, the pressure keeps building. Each coin brings a new surprise, a new reason to slow down, a new reminder that the most ordinary-looking quarters can carry the most unbelievable stories. Moving on, the next Washington quarter raises the stakes yet again, with a different year, a different flaw, and a value that pushes disbelief even further. Stay right here because what's coming next may be the biggest shock of all. Moving fast up, and this one quietly shocks even experienced collectors, the 1984 P Washington quarter. This is the kind of coin people overlook every single day because at first glance it looks ordinary. But once you slow down and really study the condition, the story completely changes. Looking at this coin, the first thing that stands out is heavy circulation. The surface shows widespread fine scratches and contact marks across Washington's face and fields. Clear signs this quarter spent many years moving through pockets, cash registers, and coin jars. The high points are worn smooth, especially around the cheek and jawline, and the overall tone is a dull gray, telling us this coin saw a lot of real-world use. In this circulated condition, most 1984 P quarters are worth only face value, maybe a few dollars to a beginner collector. But this is where the story takes a sharp turn. The year 1984 is one of the most misunderstood modern quarters. While millions were minted in Philadelphia, the quality control during this period was inconsistent. Many coins were struck with weak pressure, worn dies, and misaligned planches. That means finding a true high-grade example today is extremely difficult. Most were released directly into circulation and very few were saved in pristine condition. Now imagine this same 1984 P quarter, but instead of heavy wear, it survives in uncirculated condition. Sharp details, no major scratches, strong rims, and original mint luster still flashing under light. Coins like that are rare and collectors know it. In high mint state grades, values jump quickly into the thousands. But the real excitement starts when we talk about errors. One of the most valuable possibilities with this date is a strong double die. If lettering or numbers show clear doubling, especially in Liberty or the date, collectors pay serious money. Another major value booster is a broad strike or off-center strike. If the coin was struck without the collar or slightly misaligned, it can sell for tens of thousands of dollars depending on severity and eye appeal. Then there are planchet errors. A 1984 piece struck on the wrong metal, underweight, or missing part of the clad layer becomes something extraordinary. These are the coins that make headlines at auctions. In verified cases, rare 1984p error quarters have crossed the six-figure mark, with some pushing beyond $300,000 when condition, rarity, and demand align perfectly. What really drives collectors wild is when a coin combines multiple factors. Imagine an uncirculated 1984p with strong mint luster, a dramatic double die, and no cleaning or damage. That kind of coin is almost unheard of. When one surfaces, bidding becomes intense, emotional, and fast. Prices climb not because of hype, but because collectors know they may never see another example like it again. This is why checking condition matters so much. Even a worn coin like the one you're seeing now tells an important story. It reminds us how rare untouched examples truly are. Most 1984p quarters look exactly like this one, worn and tired. But the few that escaped circulation are now worth more than a house, sometimes more than a lifetime of savings. So before you dismiss any quarter from the 1980s, slow down. Look closely at the surfaces, the edges, and the strike quality. Check for doubling, unusual thickness, or missing metal. Because while most 1984p quarters are common, the rare survivors are anything but. And that's what makes this final coin so powerful. It proves that even modern-looking change can hold life-changing value, if the condition is right and the details tell the right story. We reach a year that almost no one worries about, and that false sense of safety is exactly what makes this coin so powerful. This is the 1980p Washington quarter struck in Philadelphia, and the coin you're looking at appears quiet, worn, and completely ordinary. It looks like the kind of quarter that has lived its whole life in pockets, cash registers, and coffee cups. But behind that worn surface is a story that has produced some of the most shocking auction results of the modern quarter era. Let's start by reading the condition directly from the image. This coin has clearly seen heavy circulation. The surface is flat and gray with no trace of original mint shine. Washington's cheek and jawline are heavily worn, and the highest points of the face are smooth from years of use. The hair details are soft and blended together, no longer sharp or separated. Across the fields, you can see fine scratches, contact marks, and dull patches that tell you this coin moved through countless hands. The rim shows uneven wear, with some letters closer to the edge appearing weaker from metal loss over time. On the reverse, the same story continues. The central details are flattened, and the surface shows light scratches and cloudy areas from constant contact with other coins. This is not a pretty coin. It is not a collector showpiece, and that is exactly why most people never stop to think about it. In circulated condition like this, a normal 1980p quarter is worth face value. Maybe $1 to someone filling a basic set. That's where nearly everyone stops. And that's where opportunity begins. The year 1980 was a chaotic time for U.S. coinage. Inflation was high, demand for coins was intense, and the Philadelphia Mint was striking quarters fast and in massive numbers. Quality control was not the top priority. Speed was. Most 1980p quarters went straight into circulation, and very few were saved in rolls or sets. As a result, truly clean survivors are far scarcer today than most people realize. Most examples you see today look exactly like this one. Worn, dull, and ordinary, and because of that, collectors often assume the entire year is common. But condition rarity changes everything. Move up just one level to lightly circulated coins where more detail remains and the surfaces are cleaner, and values can climb into the $20 to $60 range. That alone surprises many people. But the real shift happens when we reach uncirculated condition. A true uncirculated 1980p quarter with sharp details, clean fields, and original mint luster is extremely difficult to find. Certified high-grade examples have sold for thousands of dollars, especially when eye appeal is strong. That already forces collectors to rethink a year they once ignored. But the real shock does not come from normal strikes. It comes from errors. The 1980p Washington quarter is known for several major mint errors that have produced jaw-dropping prices. These are not tiny flaws. These are bold mistakes that instantly change a coin's destiny. One of the most sought-after errors from this year involves doubled dies. On these coins, parts of the lettering or date show clear doubling that can be seen without magnification. When the doubling is strong and the coin survives with minimal wear, collectors pay serious money. Some of the finest known examples have sold for tens of thousands of dollars, and demand continues to rise. But the biggest shock comes from wrong planchet errors. In these cases, the quarter was struck on a blank meant for a completely different coin. The weight is wrong, the thickness is wrong, the color is wrong. Everything about the coin feels unusual the moment it's handled. These errors are extremely rare, and when one appears in strong condition, it becomes an instant headline. One famous 1980p quarter struck on the wrong planchet stunned the collecting world when it sold for well over $300,000. That single coin rewrote expectations for the entire year. Collectors who once ignored 1980p quarters suddenly started checking every example they could find. There are also dramatic off-center strikes from this year that push values into unbelievable territory. Some are struck so far off-center that a large portion of the coin is blank, yet the date remains visible. When these coins avoid heavy circulation and survive in strong condition, bidding wars erupt. Six-figure results are very real, and prices can climb fast when multiple collectors want the same rare mistake. What makes the 1980p quarter especially dangerous to overlook is how normal it feels. There is no mint mark to catch your eye. There is no silver content to grab attention. It blends perfectly into everyday change, and that familiarity has caused countless valuable coins to be spent, cleaned, or lost forever. If you're checking your own quarters, condition is still the first filter. Look for sharp details and clean surfaces. But with 1980p coins, you must also slow down and search for errors. Is the design centered properly? Does the coin feel heavier or lighter than normal? Does the metal color look off? Do any letters or numbers appear doubled or distorted? These small details are often the first signs of something extraordinary. Here's the emotional reality behind this coin. Somewhere, a rare 1980p error quarter was spent on groceries decades ago. Somewhere else, one sat unnoticed in a jar for years, and somewhere, someone paid attention, recognized what they had, and watched their life change because they didn't assume it was worthless. The 1980p Washington quarter proves that value does not always come from age or beauty. Sometimes it comes from mistakes, survival, and timing. Sometimes it hides behind wear and familiarity, waiting for the right eyes to see it. And as we move closer to the top of this countdown, the pressure keeps building. Each coin raises the stakes. Each story gets more intense. And the values keep climbing higher than most people ever imagine. Next up, we move to another Washington quarter that surprises even seasoned collectors. With a different year, a different flaw, and a value that pushes disbelief to the edge. Stay with us because the biggest shocks are still ahead.